Good evening and welcome to the Revere School Committee of the Whole meeting. It's May 17th, 2022. Currently 5:03. I'm looking at the clock and the battery died. May we stand and pledge allegiance? Roll call of the members, please.
Mrs. Bronson Rizzo,
Here.
Mr. Ferranti,
Here.
Mrs. Gravellisi,
Here.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis,
Here.
Miss Ty,
Here.
Mayor Arrigo. Mr. Kingston.
Here.
My apologies, Mr. Kingston.
Our first item on the agenda is the consent calendar. Anyone have any questions of the minutes that were sent to us? Mr. Ferranti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt, one question. On the first page, the unemployment, I noticed that it was done monthly. Do we file that monthly or quarterly?
Excuse me, Mr. Ferranti, we didn't get that far yet.
Oh, sorry.
Still on approval of the minutes.
Oh, okay, sorry.
In a rush. Okay, anyone have any questions on the minutes that were sent to us?
Second.
We don't. At the next meeting. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Ferranti, would you have any questions for Mr. Cruz on the warrants?
I have one.
Go right ahead.
Okay, Matt, I noticed that you gave us 4 months of unemployment. Do we pay the unemployment monthly or quarterly?
The unemployment is actually paid at the same time by the city and the school department. It's done on a monthly basis. Typically, there was a delay because of staff turnover. So you can see that we actually had 4 months hit within the April timeframe. And you can also see that there's a sharp drop in unemployment since the month of January.
Just a reason why for that, Matt?
Sure, that's the echo effect of the end of the COVID timing when it was spiked for that amount of time. So for a lot of folks, that month of January was the back end of their eligibility period. And then obviously more folks are back to work than had been during the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Wow, that was easy. Mr. Cruz, getting off really fast.
Can I just mention that I will have the second version of the budget to the Ways and Means Committee on Monday, and we have a meeting scheduled to review on Wednesday. So that will be in your hands early next week.
Sounds great. Thank you for your assistance always.
Okay.
Okay. We have no financial reports, and we have no food service financials. Communication about the disposal of library furniture. Ms. Gravellisi?
Thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. This communication came from the Garfield Elementary School, dated May 5th. Dear School Committee, the Garfield Elementary School would like to formally request permission to discard old library furniture. This furniture includes tables, chairs, and a large circulation desk. The furniture currently in the space is either outdated, worn, or in a state of disrepair. Disposing of these items, which are likely original to or almost original to the school, will allow us to add new modern furniture that will make the library a much more inviting place that will assist us in our goal of promoting students' literacy development. Sincerely, P.S.C. Napier.
Do you want me to speak to that?
Dr. Kelly?
Sure, just a couple of notes here. So I did talk to Dr. Napier after he sent this recommendation to you, and he had checked with his colleagues first to see if any of the other schools could make use of that furniture. It's in a state of dilapidation such that they did not want to take it. It is original to the building, which means that it's approaching its 30th year. And so my recommendation is that we follow, there's not a worthwhile value there. And I'll just remind the committee that last year you approved the expenditure of funds through our ESSER grants to purchase new furniture for the Garfield Library. So that funding's already in place.
Dr. Kelly, is there any way that perhaps, I look at our PTOs that are trying and struggling to raise money, whether it's for field day or any other items, if maybe the PTOs at Garfield might look at it and might want to do a yard sale with it? I know it's a hassle, and I don't mean to put anything on someone's plate. I'm just, if it could maybe be offered to them?
Sure, we can offer it to them, definitely.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions on the communication? Okay, enrollment update. We all got an attachment with the numbers. Anyone have questions for Dr. Kelly? Mr. Ferranti?
Dr. Kelly, I noticed the number was 7279, but the sheet that you gave us last week said 7647 when we had our last meeting. Is there a reason for the discrepancy, or yours was, the numbers were before this one, or?
So this sheet lists only the students that are enrolled in our schools in the district. It does not include outplaced students.
Okay.
So that would be, whereas the total enrollment, we include our outplaced students.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on enrollment? I'm curious. Ms. Melbury Ellis?
Sure, I'm just curious as to how this compares to last go-around, last year. I mean, do we have an idea as to how we're progressing, like as far as how, how we're growing?
Yes, so for the last several months, we've been seeing our enrollment increase, and that was after a significant dip that we saw between last year and this current school year. So even if you look at the last enrollment report that we gave you, I forget the exact number, but I believe we're up about 60 students just in the last couple of months, and that is an aggregate change from the kids who have transferred in and the kids who have transferred out. So I should be clear that we've had a lot more than 60 kids transfer into the district, but we've had some kids transfer out as well. And so the aggregate difference is the 60 or so that you see between this report and the one that you received last time. And I'll also say that Robin is now giving you two versions. One has the whole thing on one page, which is really teeny tiny and hard to see, and the other is on the larger page, which is a little bit more unwieldy but easier to see the digits. But the two versions are the same.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on, we're on to personnel items. Anyone have any questions regarding personnel, hires, resignations, leave of absence?
Right here.
Ms. Milbury Ellis?
Sure, my question on the resignations is, being unfamiliar with this process, I look at this list and it just seems like a lot. Is this common to have this many resignations?
Yeah, it's not unusual. We have, at this point, over 1,700 employees. And so what you'll see is an uptick between now and really August, when people are moving, their homes, or just moving to another school district, or whatever the case may be. One of the things that you'll notice that on a number of these resignations, it says was on LOA. So those are people who actually were not currently actively employed in the district.
Okay.
But we only allow 2 years of leave of absence, and then folks either have to come back or resign.
Okay.
So that's the difference there. And we require people to give us their notice of resignation in the beginning of May. So that's why you get this, usually on the May report, you see this. These number of people that were on LOA were in LOA. And there are some who have indicated to us that they'll come back, who will change their mind, and we'll find out in July. So they're not on this report right now, Technically, they're listed as coming back to us in September, but they'll notify us in July that they're not actually going to come back. So
So this isn't concerning at all?
No.
Okay, and do we do exit interviews?
we do. So actually, what we do is an exit survey that we send to all departing staff and ask them to complete. And on the survey, there is an option to say that they'd like to meet and discuss more their departure. And Dr. Mokaba conducts those interviews in collaboration with Dr. Galucci and Dr. Garcia.
And there's nothing like concerning about, like, that's come out of those interviews?
I mean, I would say no is the answer to your question. Are there people who leave because they're disgruntled for one reason or another? Absolutely. But it's not a preponderance of the people. The vast majority of people leave because they've had some kind of a life change. A lot of our younger teachers come to us because they've completed their studies at a local university or college, but then when they get married and start having children, they want to move closer to home. That happens quite frequently. We do have a number of staff who take promotional positions in other districts. We have a number of staff who just decide they want to teach in another district, so they leave for that reason.
That's fair enough, thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Kelly, do we have an average number of who we may see in retirements this year?
We don't have an average number, but I know it's still very low. As you know, we're in that cycle that we've been in for the last number of years, where it's the echo effect of the city of Revere not doing a lot of hiring in the late 80s and early 90s. So it's really my contemporaries and people who were hired a year or two before me who we're going to start to see a change in that retirement trajectory. And I think I've told you all that I have 6 years till retirement. So I think you're going to start seeing that uptick in about maybe 3 or 4 years because that's when the hiring started prior to me.
Okay, moving on to acceptance of donations. First one is Summer Food Service Program Expansion, Access, Training, and Startup Grants.
Do you want me
Ms.
just to touch on
Gravellisi?
each one of them?
Oh, sure.
Is that might be easier. So each year we do apply for this summer food grant. And part of that process includes not just the funding for the summer food program itself, but also for a ramp up in training. And that's what this grant is. And I have to thank Cheryl Cole and Pauline Lyons and Kitty Adams who submitted this grant and secured it. So we anticipate we'll see our traditional larger summer food grant program coming soon. But this is this small grant is for the prep work, and they buy some awards for students and things like that. To help entice them into the summer food program. And so it's for a modest amount of $12,450, but it's always very helpful to us. This grant also supports the purchase of warming bags and coolers and things like that keep this food safe and fresh as they travel from where it is prepared at the Beachmont School to all of the different park sites that they distribute food at.
Next one, development and expansion of high-quality summer learning opportunities. Ms.
Thank you.
Gravellisi?
Sorry, I have all of them. I put these on the agenda just so, one of the things we've been asked to do in the past is explain whenever we get any grants or things. So really, they're not formal notices, so I didn't put them in the packet for public consumption. I just figured I'd describe what they are, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
If you could also give us the name and the amount.
Sure thing, yep. So this grant is from the Department of Education, and it was a very competitive grant that Mr. Bowen applied for on behalf of the Revere High School. And this grant is targeted towards a more comprehensive and rigorous summer program for students. The grant, they were awarding up to a total of $5 million. There were $9 million in grant requests. And so the Department of Education made a cap of $100,000 on the grant awards. And some districts, depending on their applications and how they were vetted by DESE, got as low as $30,000. But Revere High School, with the quality of their application, got the full $100,000 maximum award. And so that program, that funding is going to be used to support the summer programs at Revere High School, particularly those targeted at helping incoming freshmen transition to the high school.
Thank you, Mr. Bowen. And the third is Accelerating Mathematics Instruction Grant.
Thank you. And this grant is also from the Department of Education, and I have to thank Dr. Costa, who applied for it. This was, again, a very rigorous and competitive grant. It is targeted specifically at products and programs to support student learning of mathematics, and there are a set number of programs that DESE would allow us to use the funding for. And in our case, some of the new programs that we've been putting in place and some of the programs that we've had in place were supported by the grant. And so this is for a total of $313,000. So it's a significant amount of money. And I kind of foreshadowed this when we had the budget subcommittee, not budget, when did we have? Personnel subcommittee last week. And I mentioned that there was some room in the budget that we had anticipated because Dr. Costa got this grant. And so where we had made space in our budget to make sure we could get these materials for students next year, we were able to move those into the grant funding, which made some additional room for other priorities in the district. And so this funding, this $313,000, is going to pay for our licenses for ST Math, which we use in the K through 5 program, for Agile Mind, which we use in grades 6 through 12, and for the Illustrative Math, which is a new program that we implemented in the lower elementary this year and are implementing for the first time in grades 4 and 5 next year. So,
great.
yeah, lots of funding.
Yeah. We like funding.
Thank you, Dr. Costa. And our last item, Harvard residency, Mona Ford Walker.
So I just wanted to tell the committee, I don't know if you recall, but I had mentioned months ago that Harvard University has their Graduate School of Education. Well, you knew that, but I mentioned that they had reached out to us about taking on a doctoral candidate for an internship in the district. And we had actually agreed to do this a couple of years ago. It was the year that COVID happened, and the candidate who was assigned to us withdrew from the program due to COVID reasons. So they reached back out earlier this year, and we once again agreed. And so Dr. Mona Ford Walker, who I was thinking was going to be here, I'm wondering now if I told her 6 o'clock, to introduce herself to you. And if not, then she'll be at the June meeting. I can have her join then and just explain a little bit about who she is and where she comes from. But just by way of a very minute background, as I mentioned, she's a doctoral candidate at Harvard and is focusing her studies on urban education. Her specialty lies in project-based learning and mastery-based learning. And so she is going to join us. Harvard very generously pays a stipend to these candidates that supports their work. So she'll be working with us, and the cost of the program is $70,000, which Harvard will give to the Revere Public Schools to pay her her salary and her costs. So it's a huge opportunity. She's going to begin on June 1st, and her first task is going to be getting to know the district and understanding what's happening here, and then together we'll identify a project that she's going to work on that will become her dissertation. And it's going to be something that she's interested in, but also is an advantage to the district. And so we're not really sure exactly what that's going to be yet. Some of the things that I've been thinking about is the advancing of the mastery-based learning work at Revere High School. I've also been thinking about the innovation work that Dr. Mulligan is doing at Seacoast. I just think there's a lot of different opportunities. Ms. Ford Walker is a former principal in the Boston Public Schools, and that's where she was most recently before she left to do this full-time work at Harvard. So she definitely brings a wealth of experience, and I think will be an asset to the district.
And thank you, Harvard.
Yes.
So at this point, does anyone have any questions or statements that they want to make regarding our regular meeting at 6 PM? Hearing and seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Ty, one, and Mr. Ferranti with the second. So at this time, the school committee has adjourned, and we will return at 6 PM for our regular business meeting.